Have you ever wondered what lies beyond the heavens? What mysteries are hidden in the unseen realms above? What if we told you that there is a story so extraordinary, so otherworldly, that it has been passed down for centuries, holding secrets that could change everything you thought you knew about the universe? This isn't just another tale from an ancient text. This is the story of Enoch, the man who walked with angels, ascended to the highest heavens, and witnessed the divine face of God himself. You're about to embark on a journey unlike any other. Imagine being swept up by celestial beings with faces that shine like the sun, their wings brighter than gold, their presence so overwhelming that even the air around you seems to burn with their power. This is the story of a man who was chosen to witness the inner workings of creation, who was entrusted with knowledge so profound that it was forbidden to share with anyone until the end of time. Have you ever heard of the 10 heavens? The sacred realms where angels dwell, where souls are judged, where the very fabric of reality itself seems to twist and turn according to the will of the Almighty. Enoch's journey through these heavens will open your eyes to the divine order, to the unseen forces that govern the stars, the elements, and even the hearts of men. The Book of Enoch, an ancient and mysterious text, reveals these incredible truths, showing us a world where angels rule, where the fallen are bound in eternal darkness, and where the most unimaginable sights await those who dare to venture into the realms beyond our understanding. But it's not just a tale of celestial wonders. It's also a story of great tragedy, of rebellion, of angels who turned away from their Creator, who were cast down into the deepest pits of hell, never to return. It's a story of judgment and mercy, of light and darkness, of life and death. What happens when angels fall? What happens when they betray the Creator? The answers lie hidden in the heavens, waiting to be uncovered by those brave enough to seek them. In this video, we'll take you on an unparalleled journey through the heavens, following Enoch's footsteps as he ascends from the earthly realm to the highest heights of creation. We'll reveal the mysteries of the first heaven, where the stars are controlled by powerful beings, to the second heaven, where the fallen angels are imprisoned in eternal darkness. You'll see the third heaven, a paradise filled with the tree of life, the source of all goodness, and the fourth heaven, where the cursed souls are punished for their sins. As we climb higher, you'll witness the wonders of the sixth heaven, where the archangels govern the seasons and the stars, and the seventh heaven, where the divine light shines brighter than anything you can imagine. Finally, we'll reveal the awe-inspiring truth about the 10th heaven, the dwelling place of God himself, where the Lord sits upon his eternal throne, surrounded by legions of angels who sing his praises in eternal worship. But beware, this journey is not for the faint of heart. The truth you're about to uncover may shake the very foundation of your beliefs. It will challenge everything you think you know about the heavens, the earth, and the Creator. But if you're ready to discover the unimaginable, to witness the glory of the divine and the fall of the rebellious angels, then stay with us as we dive deep into the Book of Enoch and explore the most profound secrets of the universe. What awaits us in the heavens? What does Enoch's incredible journey reveal about our place in the cosmos? Tune in and find out, because this is a story that will change the way you see the world forever. You won't believe what you're about to learn. The heavens are waiting. The divine mystery is about to unfold before your eyes. Don't miss out on this life-changing revelation. The truth is closer than you think, and it's more powerful than you can imagine. Prepare yourself for a journey that will take you beyond the stars and into the very presence of God himself. In a time long ago, in a world still new, where the air seemed to hum with the quiet vibrancy of creation itself, there lived a man named Enoch, whose life would become a testament to the faithfulness of walking with God. His name, though not known by many in the world of men, was written in the scrolls of heaven, for he walked a path that was different from those around him. His heart was attuned to the whispers of the Almighty, and his feet moved in harmony with the divine will. He lived humbly, not seeking glory, not desiring riches, but simply seeking to please the Lord in all things. His heart burned with a love for God that was unlike any other, and it was that love that would soon carry him on a journey so magnificent, so transformative, that it would change the course of his life forever. It was on a day like no other, when the earth was at rest and the sun had just risen to greet the sky, that Enoch's life was to take an unexpected turn. He had just begun his morning, resting in the quiet of his home, as he often did. The weight of the day's tasks had yet to settle upon his shoulders, and his heart was open, ready to receive whatever the Lord might have for him. But this day was different. As Enoch sat, basking in the quiet peace of the morning, two angels appeared before him, their presence lighting up the room as though the very heavens had opened up and poured their glory upon the earth. These angels were no ordinary beings. Their forms were filled with an ethereal radiance, a brilliance that made the sun itself seem dim in comparison. Their faces shone with such light that Enoch could scarcely look upon them, and their voices were like the soft whisper of the wind, yet filled with the deep authority of heaven. They came not with words of judgment or reproach, but with a message of invitation. "Enoch, servant of the Most High," they said, their voices gentle yet filled with the power of eternity. "We have come to call you to a journey that will take you beyond the limits of this world. Come, follow us, for you will ascend into the heavens and see the things that no eye has yet seen. You will witness the glories of the Lord in his highest realms, and you will behold mysteries that are hidden from the eyes of men. Follow us, and you will see the truth that lies beyond the stars." Enoch, whose heart had already been trained to hear the voice of the Lord, did not hesitate. He did not question or fear the strange calling. He knew, deep in his spirit, that this was the will of God. He rose from his seat, his heart filled with reverence and awe, and followed the angels out of his home and into the unknown. As he walked with them, Enoch felt the earth beneath his feet fall away, and the sky above him seemed to stretch open, as though he were about to pass through a veil into a realm beyond his understanding. With each step, Enoch ascended higher and higher, the earth growing smaller beneath him, until at last he was high above the clouds, his feet no longer touching the ground. The wind was strong around him, yet he was untouched by it, as though he were being lifted by some invisible force. As he continued to rise, he looked down and saw the land spread out before him like a vast tapestry, the mountains, rivers, and oceans that he had known all his life now appearing small and insignificant in comparison to the greatness of the journey he was undertaking. The beauty of the earth was still present, but now it was as though he were on the threshold of something far greater. The angels led Enoch through the heavens, and as they ascended, he was shown the first of many wondrous sights. They brought him to the first heaven, a realm of such beauty and wonder that Enoch could scarcely comprehend it. Before him stretched a vast sea, greater than any ocean he had ever seen, a sea whose waters shimmered with a light that was not of this world. The sea was calm, its surface reflecting the pure light of heaven, and as Enoch gazed upon it, he felt a deep sense of peace settle over him. It was as though this sea, this vast and infinite expanse, held the very essence of life itself. It was a symbol of the eternal, a reminder of the boundless love and grace of the Creator. As he stood at the edge of this heavenly sea, Enoch began to understand that it was not just the physical beauty of the sea that was so awe-inspiring, but the deeper meaning it held. This sea, though vast and seemingly endless, was a reflection of the limitless love of God. It was a reminder that God's grace could not be contained, that his love was as boundless as the waters before him. The sea was a symbol of God's presence, ever moving, ever flowing, a constant reminder of his faithfulness and his provision. From there, the angels led Enoch higher, to witness the works of those who govern the stars. In the heavens, the stars were not just points of light in the sky, but were living beings, celestial spirits whose task was to guide and protect the cosmos. The angels, radiant and glorious in their own right, moved among the stars, ensuring that each one remained in its appointed place, shining with a light that reflected the glory of God. Enoch watched in awe as the angels worked in harmony with the stars, their movements graceful and purposeful, each one fulfilling its role in the divine plan. It was here that Enoch began to understand the deeper workings of the universe, how everything, from the smallest grain of sand to the farthest star, was part of a divine order, a tapestry woven together by the hand of God. As the journey continued, the angels led Enoch through other realms of the heavens, showing him the treasures of the natural world. They revealed to him the mysteries of snow, rain, and mist, elements that, though common on earth, carried with them profound spiritual significance. The snow, with its purity and whiteness, spoke of the cleansing power of God's grace, washing away the stains of sin and bringing renewal to all things. The rain, with its gentle touch, symbolized God's provision, nourishing the earth and all who dwell upon it. And the mist, soft and elusive, represented the mysterious nature of God's presence, always near but often hidden from mortal eyes. Enoch marveled at how the angels cared for the natural world, how they tended to the stars, the waters, and the winds with such reverence and care. It became clear to him that nothing in the heavens was left to chance. Everything, from the smallest snowflake to the most distant star, had its purpose in God's grand design. Each element, each being, was part of a greater plan, a plan that spoke of God's wisdom, His love, and His infinite power. But it was not just the beauty of the heavens that filled Enoch with awe. As he walked through these divine realms, he came to understand the true nature of God's greatness. He saw that all things in the heavens existed to glorify God, to reflect His majesty and His glory. The angels, though mighty in their own right, were but servants of the Lord, carrying out His will with perfect obedience. The stars, though burning with their own light, were but reflections of the greater light of God. Enoch began to see the world in a new way, recognizing the divine order that governed all things, the intricate and beautiful design of the Creator that was woven into the very fabric of the universe. As Enoch journeyed through the heavens, he felt his own heart being transformed. The deeper he went into the presence of God, the more he understood the true meaning of life. The things of this world, wealth, status, and fame, seemed so insignificant compared to the glory of God. Enoch's heart burned with a desire to draw closer to the Creator, to know Him more intimately, to be transformed by His presence. The peace that he felt in the presence of the divine was unlike anything he had ever known. It was a peace that surpassed all understanding, a peace that filled every corner of his being, calming the restlessness of his soul. Through his journey, Enoch came to understand the depth of God's love for His creation. He saw that God was not a distant, uncaring deity, but a loving Father who intimately cared for every aspect of His creation. From the stars in the sky to the flowers in the field, everything had been created by God's hand, and everything was held together by His love and grace. Enoch felt a deep sense of gratitude and awe, knowing that he was a part of this great and beautiful creation. When Enoch finally returned to the earth, his heart was filled with a new understanding of God's greatness and a renewed sense of purpose. He had seen the glory of the heavens, but more importantly, he had seen the heart of God. The journey had changed him forever, and he knew that he was now called to share the message of God's love with all who would listen. His walk with God had become even deeper, and his desire to glorify God in all things had grown stronger than ever before. And so, Enoch continued to walk faithfully with the Lord, sharing the message of his grace, his love, and his eternal plan with all who would hear, knowing that he had been given a glimpse of the divine that few would ever experience. As Enoch began his ascent to the second level, a profound sense of anticipation and divine awe washed over him. The journey, already transformative, took him deeper into realms that defied the understanding of mere mortal comprehension. The air around him grew thicker, filled with the weight of history and consequence, as though the very atmosphere had been steeped in the sorrow and regret of ages past. The second level, unlike the bright and serene realm he had just passed through, was an unmistakable reflection of divine justice, a place where the consequences of rebellion were not only felt, but clearly manifested in ways that left an indelible mark upon the soul. Here, Enoch saw something that shook him to his core, something that would forever change the way he understood both the nature of God's justice and the cost of turning away from his grace. Before him, in this dark and oppressive place, were the fallen angels, the very beings who had once stood in the presence of the Creator, basked in his glory, and walked in the light of his holiness. These beings, now imprisoned in eternal chains of darkness, bore the weight of their own decisions, and the consequences were as undeniable as the depths of their sorrow. These angels, once pure and radiant, had fallen from grace through pride and rebellion, choosing to defy the very will of the Almighty. They had traded their place in the heavenly courts for the fleeting promises of self-exaltation, and in doing so they sealed their fate. Their cries were not just those of physical suffering, but of spiritual anguish, an eternal lament for what they had lost, for the glory they had once known and had now forever forfeited. As Enoch gazed upon them, his heart was heavy with sorrow, yet he understood, perhaps more than ever before, that God's justice is not arbitrary, but is deeply connected to the choices of his creation. There was no evil in the Lord's will, no unrighteousness in his actions, and no injustice in his judgment. The fallen angels were not only prisoners of their sin, but also witnesses to the divine truth that when one chooses to step outside the light of God, the consequences are far-reaching and permanent. Enoch, though filled with compassion for their plight, could not deny the reality that they were the architects of their own demise. They had walked in the very light of heaven, and yet had chosen to rebel, and in that choice they had sealed their own fate. It was a painful, sobering reality that Enoch now fully comprehended. God, in his mercy, had provided them with every opportunity to return, to seek his forgiveness, but their pride had led them to reject that mercy time and time again. This was the consequence of defiance against the divine, and it was a lesson that Enoch would carry with him as he continued his journey. After what seemed like an eternity of witnessing the torment and suffering of the fallen angels, Enoch found himself once again on the move, his feet carrying him higher into the heavenly realms. As he ascended, he left behind the second level and entered a realm where the air itself seemed to shimmer with divine light. This third level, unlike the one he had just left, was a place of peace, beauty, and life, a realm that seemed to breathe with the very essence of God's goodness and mercy. The transformation was so stark, it was as though Enoch had crossed from a place of despair into a sanctuary of hope. The land was bathed in the soft glow of eternal light, and as he walked through this heavenly realm, Enoch was filled with a deep sense of serenity, as if every step he took brought him closer to the heart of God. At the center of this peaceful place stood the tree of life, towering and majestic, its roots deeply embedded in the soil of this divine realm, while its branches stretched out in every direction, offering shade and protection to all who came near. The tree of life was unlike any tree Enoch had ever seen. Its leaves shone with a light that seemed to come from within, and its fruit glowed with a heavenly radiance. The air around it was thick with a fragrance so sweet, so pure, that it filled Enoch's heart with an overwhelming sense of peace and contentment. As he stood before this tree, He could feel the presence of God in a way that was deeper and more intimate than anything he had known before. This was no ordinary tree. It was the source of life itself, a symbol of God's abundant provision and his desire to offer life to all who seek it. The tree of life was a living testament to the truth that God, in his infinite love, desires for his creation to live in communion with him, to partake in the fullness of life that only he can offer. It was a reminder that true life is found not in the fleeting things of this world, but in the eternal, unshakable truth of God's love and grace. As Enoch stood there, captivated by the beauty and holiness of the tree, he felt a deep stirring within his own soul. This tree, with its shining leaves and glowing fruit, was not merely a symbol, but a living, breathing reality that spoke to the very essence of what it meant to be in the presence of God. The tree of life was the gift of divine sustenance, offering nourishment not just to the body but to the spirit as well. And as Enoch gazed upon it, he understood that it was a symbol of the eternal life that God offers to all who seek him, a life that is abundant, full, and eternal, a life that can only be found through a relationship with the Creator. Surrounding the tree of life was a river, its waters flowing gently through the land, crystal clear and shimmering in the light of the divine. The river was not just a physical stream, but a representation of the living water that flows from the heart of God, the water that refreshes, nourishes, and sustains all who partake of it. As Enoch approached the river, he bent down and cupped his hands, drinking deeply from its waters. The moment the cool water touched his lips, he felt a rush of peace and fulfillment, a satisfaction that was deeper than any physical nourishment could provide. The waters of this river were not only refreshing to the body, but were life-giving to the soul, representing the eternal sustenance that God offers to all who seek him. And as Enoch drank from the river, he felt his spirit being renewed and restored, as if every drop of water carried with it the very essence of God's grace and mercy. The river flowed freely, its waters overflowing with abundance, symbolizing the unceasing generosity of the Lord, who provides for his creation without measure. The milk and honey that flowed alongside the river were not mere symbols of earthly abundance, but spiritual sustenance, representing the sweetness of God's presence and the richness of his love. These were the things that nourished the soul, giving life and peace to those who partook of them. As Enoch walked along the river's edge, he marveled at the landscape that stretched before him. The trees were vibrant, their leaves shimmering with divine light, and the flowers bloomed in every direction, their colors more brilliant than anything he had ever seen on earth. The air was filled with the sweet scent of the flowers, the songs of birds, and the whispers of the breeze, as though the entire realm was alive with the presence of God. It was a place untouched by decay, untainted by sin, a place where the beauty of creation reflected the glory of the Creator. This, Enoch realized, was the realm of peace, the realm where God's love and goodness reigned supreme, and where all who entered could find rest for their weary souls. As Enoch continued his journey through this divine realm, he came upon a group of angels, 300 in total, who stood as sentinels, guarding this sacred place. Their presence was both comforting and awe-inspiring, for it was clear that they were not just warriors, but guardians of the peace and sanctity that existed here. These angels, radiant in their beauty and strength, were not there to wage battle, but to protect the harmony and tranquility of this heavenly realm. Their role was to ensure that no darkness, no evil, could enter this place of light, and that all who entered could experience the fullness of God's love and grace. Enoch could sense the deep commitment these angels had to their task, and he realized that they were not merely servants, but also partners with God in the divine plan. They were the watchful eyes of the Lord, ever vigilant, ensuring that the beauty and peace of this realm would never be disturbed. As Enoch stood among them, he was filled with a deep sense of reverence and awe, for these angels were not only protectors, but also reflections of God's infinite love and care for his creation. They stood as living symbols of the eternal protection that God offers to all who walk in his ways. Their presence reminded Enoch that no matter the trials or challenges that one might face on earth, God's love and protection are always with his faithful servants, guiding and shielding them from harm. And as Enoch continued his journey, he was filled with a renewed sense of hope, for he understood that no matter where one walks in life, as long as they walk in the light of God's love, they will find peace, they will find sustenance, and they will find life that is eternal. The third level, with its tree of life, its flowing rivers, and its guardian angels, was a testament to the abundant life that God offers to all who seek him. It was a place of rest, a place of healing, and a place of divine peace, a place where the weary could find rest, and where the soul could drink deeply from the living water that flows from the heart of the Creator. And in that moment Enoch knew that this was the reality of heaven, not a distant dream or far-off promise, but a present reality for all who choose to walk in the light of God's love. In these two realms, the fourth and fifth levels, there is a profound contrast, but also a deeper connection. The fire and ice of the fourth level reflect the consequences of sin, the rebellion against God's will, and the eternal separation that results from living apart from him. The fifth level, on the other hand, reflects the order and beauty of God's divine plan, a plan that is perfect and unchanging, guiding all of creation toward its ultimate purpose. These two realms speak to the heart of the human condition, the choice between sin and righteousness, between rebellion and submission to God's will. The fire and ice of the fourth level serve as a stark warning to those who choose to live apart from God, while the beauty of the fifth level offers a vision of what awaits those who choose to live in harmony with his will. It is a reminder that our choices, both in this life and in the next, have eternal consequences. Just as the celestial bodies move in accordance with God's plan, so too must we align our lives with his will, seeking his light and his guidance in all that we do. For in the end, it is not the power of sin, but the power of God's love and grace that will determine the course of our lives and our eternal destiny. And may we all, in our journey of faith, choose to walk in the light of his truth, that we may find our place among the stars, shining brightly for his glory. In the sixth level of heaven, Enoch's experience became one of unparalleled revelation. He found himself in the company of the great archangels, beings of immense power, purpose, and divine responsibility. These archangels were not merely messengers or servants of God in the traditional sense, as the scriptures sometimes describe angels. Rather, they were the mighty rulers of the natural world, governing the forces of nature, ensuring the orderly progression of time, and safeguarding the balance of the cosmos. Their dominion extended to overseeing the seasons, which in their infinite cycles reflect the continual unfolding of God's divine plan. The archangels were not mere passive observers, but active participants in the eternal rhythm of creation. They were the guardians of the oceans and rivers, ensuring that the waters of the earth flowed according to God's will, that the tides came in and out in perfect harmony, and that the earth was watered as it needed to be. They were also the keepers of the calendar, the directors of time, and the maintainers of the very order that sustains the universe. These mighty beings had the solemn responsibility of recording every human action, not in some distant, cold ledger, but with the same care and attention that a mother might have for her child, recording each moment as it passed. Every breath we take, every word we speak, every thought that flickers in our minds is seen and recorded by these archangels, for they serve a purpose far greater than we can imagine. Their task is not one of mere observation, but of active stewardship. These archangels are the ones who ensure that the natural world remains balanced, that the seasons do not change in ways they should not, that the rivers do not overflow, and the oceans do not rise beyond their boundaries. In a world that often seems chaotic and unpredictable, the presence of these archangels is a reminder that there is a divine order, a perfect plan that governs all things. Their vigilance is not only about maintaining the world's physical balance, but also ensuring that God's will is done, that every detail of creation is aligned with the divine purpose. They record every action of mankind, not for the sake of punishment or reward, but for the sake of understanding the unfolding of God's perfect plan. They are there to ensure that nothing escapes God's notice, that nothing falls outside the scope of His sovereignty. This reminder of the meticulous care with which God watches over His creation should bring us comfort, knowing that no matter how insignificant we may seem, we are seen by the Creator, and our actions matter. As Enoch continued to ascend through the heavens, he was guided into higher realms, realms that were not of this earth. These were not places of physical beauty or material wealth, but places that existed outside of the limitations of time and space. These were places that existed in the pure presence of God, where His light was so pure and radiant that it transcended all earthly understanding. The closer Enoch drew to these higher heavens, the more intense the light became. It was not just any light, but a divine radiance, an all-encompassing glow that pierced through the very depths of his being. It was the light of God Himself, the Creator of all things, and it shone with a brilliance that left Enoch trembling in awe and wonder. This was not the light of the sun or the stars, not the light that illuminates our world, but a light that emanated from the very essence of God's holiness and purity. As Enoch looked upon this light, he felt as though every part of him was being exposed to the divine truth of God's nature. It was not a light that could be hidden from or ignored. It was a light that revealed everything, that illuminated the deepest parts of his soul. In this light there was no place for darkness, no room for sin or impurity. It was a pure, holy, and righteous light that filled every corner of the heavens and beyond. The experience was overwhelming for Enoch, who could not fully comprehend the magnitude of what he was witnessing. The intensity of the light was so great that he could not look upon it directly. It was as if the very fabric of his being was being stretched to its limits, pulled into the presence of God in a way that was both terrifying and beautiful. This light was not a physical phenomenon, but a spiritual one, a revelation of God's nature that surpassed all human understanding. It was a light that revealed not just the physical world, but the spiritual realms as well. It was as though Enoch was able to see into the very heart of God's creation, to witness the divine order that governed all things. It was in this light that Enoch came to understand the eternal truth that God is both immanent and transcendent. He is both near to us, involved in every moment of our lives, and yet He is also far beyond us, existing in a realm of glory and holiness that we can scarcely imagine. As Enoch continued to draw closer to this divine light, he found himself standing before the very presence of God. The glory of God was so overwhelming, so unfathomable, that Enoch could scarcely take it in. It was as though the very essence of God's being was laid bare before him, yet at the same time, it was something that Enoch could not fully understand. He saw the form of God, but it was not a form that could be comprehended with the human mind. What Enoch saw was not a physical image, but a divine reality that transcended all human concepts of form and substance. The glory of God was so pure, so perfect, that it was beyond all human description. What Enoch witnessed was not just a vision of God's glory, but a glimpse into the very heart of God's love, power, and holiness. The light that surrounded God was not just a visual experience. It was a spiritual revelation that pierced to the depths of Enoch's soul. It was as though the very essence of God's being was being revealed to him in ways that went beyond any earthly experience. As Enoch stood before God, he realized that he could not fully comprehend the full extent of what he was seeing. The glory of God was so great, so all-encompassing that it was beyond his ability to grasp. He understood that what he had witnessed was only a small fragment of the infinite glory of God, that there was much more to discover, much more to experience. And yet, even in the midst of this overwhelming experience, Enoch felt a deep sense of peace. He felt as though he was standing in the very presence of the one who had created the universe, the one who held all things in his hands. There was a deep, abiding sense of love and safety in the presence of God, and despite the overwhelming nature of the experience, Enoch felt no fear. Instead, he felt a deep sense of awe and reverence, knowing that he was standing before the Creator of all things. In this moment, Enoch came to understand the nature of God's light. It was not a light that burned with anger or judgment, but a light that shone with love and grace. It was a light that revealed the truth of God's holiness and purity, but also revealed the depth of his mercy and compassion. God's light did not drive Enoch away. It drew him closer, inviting him into the divine presence, into the heart of God's love. In this light, Enoch saw not only the greatness of God, but also the love that God has for all of his creation. The overwhelming light of God's presence did not cause Enoch to shrink back in fear, but to step forward in awe, recognizing that this was the light that had called him into being, the light that had given him life, and the light that now offered him the greatest gift of all, the opportunity to stand before the Creator of all things. This experience, though beyond human understanding, is a profound reminder of the nature of God's love and holiness. It is a light that calls us to come closer, to seek more, and to enter into a deeper relationship with the Creator. The light of God is not something that we can fully comprehend, but it is something that we can experience in our hearts. Just as Enoch was drawn into the divine presence, so too are we invited to come into the light of God's love. It is this light that will guide us through the darkness of this world, that will illuminate our path and lead us to the fullness of God's presence. Even though we cannot fully comprehend the greatness of God, we can rest in the knowledge that He is with us, that His light surrounds us, and that His love will never fail us. And in this light, we find peace, we find hope, and we find the purpose for which we were created, to be in the presence of God, to live in His love, and to reflect His glory in all that we do. In the beginning, there was a man who walked in the presence of the Almighty, a man whose very life was a testament to the truth that God calls us not only to live, but to live deeply and intimately with Him. His name was Enoch. Few have been as deeply honored as he, and yet few have understood the weight of what it truly means to walk with God as he did. In the Bible, we read about Enoch briefly, just a few verses that paint the picture of a life set apart for God. Genesis 5:24 tells us simply, Enoch walked with God, then he was no more, because God took him. These words, though simple, are profound in their meaning, and they reveal a truth about God's desire for relationship with His creation, a truth that should stir the hearts of all who seek to draw near to Him. Enoch's story is not just a historical account of a man who lived long ago, but a powerful reminder to us today that God desires to walk with us, that He wants to invite us into a deep, intimate relationship with Himself. Enoch's walk with God was one marked by purity, by a pursuit of righteousness, and by a longing for the divine presence that transcended all earthly concerns. It is said that Enoch walked with God for 300 years, living faithfully in a time when the world was filled with corruption and sin. His life stood in stark contrast to the world around him, a beacon of light in the darkness. And then, one day, God called Enoch to Himself. He didn't experience death as we understand it. He was simply taken by God, elevated from the earth, and brought into the very presence of the Creator. God did not allow him to see death. Instead, He called him to a higher calling, a calling to stand before Him forever. How much God must have loved Enoch to call him up to be with him, to spare him from the grip of death that claims us all. This is a profound reflection of God's grace and his desire to be in communion with those who faithfully seek him. But Enoch's story is not just about his personal elevation. It's about the invitation extended to all of us to walk with God and experience the joy of his presence. After Enoch was taken, it is written that he was clothed in garments of glory. This is significant. In the Bible, clothing often represents one's righteousness and purity. In Revelation 7:9-14, the faithful are described as wearing robes washed clean in the blood of the Lamb, garments that symbolize holiness and divine favor. When Enoch was taken up, he was dressed in glorious garments, not of this world, but of heaven. These garments were a visible sign of God's approval and of the purity that Enoch had attained through his walk with God. Imagine, if you will, what it must have been like for Enoch to stand before God, clothed in such splendor, in the very presence of the Creator. His transformation was not just external, but deeply spiritual. He was now clothed in glory, because he had been faithful to walk in the ways of God. God's invitation to stand before him clothed in glory is a promise extended to all who walk in righteousness, a promise that one day we too will be transformed and clothed in glory, standing before the throne of God. But what does it mean for us today? How does Enoch's story speak to our lives? It reminds us that our lives, though short and fleeting in the grand scope of time, are not insignificant. Every moment we walk with God is precious. Every act of obedience, every prayer, every choice to live righteously draws us closer to the divine presence. God longs for us to walk with him, not just in the sense of physically being present, but in the sense of living our lives in constant communion with him. To walk with God means to live in such a way that we are constantly aware of his presence, constantly seeking his will, constantly striving to be more like him. It is a life marked by humility, by purity, and by a longing for his glory. And just as Enoch's life was marked by such faithfulness, so too can ours be. When we live our lives in devotion to God, when we seek his presence above all else, we too are being transformed. We too are being prepared for the day when we will stand before God, clothed in glory, just as Enoch did. This transformation is not something that happens only at the end of our lives, but it is something that begins now. Every moment we walk in obedience to God, every time we choose righteousness over sin, we are being transformed into his image. Just as Enoch was elevated from this world and clothed in glory, so too are we called to rise above the ways of this world and to be clothed in the righteousness of Christ. It is written in Philippians 3:21 that God will transform our lowly bodies so that they will be like his glorious body. This transformation is not just a future hope, but a present reality. As we walk with God in faithfulness, we are being prepared for that ultimate day when we will stand before him, glorified and clothed in his splendor. But what does this transformation look like in our daily lives? It means living with a heart that is constantly seeking after God, constantly yearning for his presence. It means living with a mind that is set on heavenly things, not on the distractions of this world. It means loving God with all our heart, soul, and mind, and loving our neighbors as ourselves. It means being willing to lay down our own desires and to take up the cross, following Christ wherever he leads. And when we do this, we are not only walking with God in this life, but we are preparing ourselves for the life to come, the life that is eternal. Enoch's life calls us to examine our own walk with God. Are we living in a way that pleases him? Are we walking in righteousness, in truth, and in the light of his presence? Or are we being distracted by the things of this world, allowing sin to pull us away from the path of righteousness? The story of Enoch challenges us to live with purpose, to live with intention, to walk closely with God in every moment of our lives. It challenges us to seek His glory above all else and to live in a way that reflects His love and holiness. But it also offers hope. It reminds us that God has not called us to walk this journey alone. He walks with us every step of the way. And just as He clothed Enoch in glory, He promises to clothe us in righteousness and to transform us into the image of His Son. The invitation is before us. Just as Enoch was called to stand in the presence of God forever, so too are we invited to come closer to the Lord, to experience His presence, and to be transformed by His glory. The question is not whether God is willing to walk with us, for He is always ready and waiting. The question is whether we are willing to walk with Him, to open our hearts to His presence, and to allow Him to transform us into the image of His glory. May we, like Enoch, walk with God in faithfulness and obedience, that we may one day stand before Him, clothed in glory, forever in His presence. The promise is there for all who seek Him, for all who desire to walk in His ways. The choice is ours. As we reach the conclusion of this remarkable journey through the sacred heavens, it's impossible to deny the profound impact of what we've uncovered. The story of Enoch, his ascension through the 10 heavens, and the hidden truths he witnessed, stretches far beyond ancient myth or religious texts. It touches something far deeper, something that resonates with the core of human existence. We've walked with angels, soared through realms of unimaginable beauty and terror, and witnessed the awe-inspiring majesty of the Creator Himself. But as we step back from this celestial adventure, what remains? What are we left with after witnessing the secrets that have been locked away from humanity for millennia? First, we must ask ourselves, what does it all mean? What is the true significance of Enoch's journey? Why was he chosen? What can we learn from the Book of Enoch that goes beyond the pages of an ancient text? The truth is, Enoch's ascension reveals something profoundly significant about the nature of existence and the Creator. It's a message that echoes across the ages, calling us to reflect on the choices we make, the lives we lead, and the legacy we leave behind. Enoch wasn't just a man who walked with angels. He was a man who embraced divine wisdom, who saw the universe through a lens that few ever get the privilege to witness. And as we gaze upon the same heavens he saw, we must ask ourselves if we too can rise above the darkness that clouds our world, or if we will remain bound by the earthly temptations that led the fallen angels astray. The heavens are not just a distant, unreachable place. They represent the higher calling, the divine potential within each of us. They are the realms of purity, of light, and of eternal truth, standing in stark contrast to the corruption that festers here on earth. When Enoch ascended through the heavens, he wasn't just observing. He was partaking in a profound spiritual awakening. Each realm he passed through was a reflection of different aspects of human nature and the choices we make. From the dazzling, life-giving first heaven, where the stars are controlled by divine forces, to the second heaven, where darkness and punishment await the souls of those who rebelled against God. The journey wasn't just one of physical ascension. It was an inward journey that speaks to our own inner struggles, our battles with light and darkness, good and evil. As we delve deeper into the nature of Enoch's vision, we see that the story is far more than just a depiction of heavenly realms. It is a divine warning, a call to humanity to live with purpose and righteousness, for the consequences of straying from the path of virtue are grave. The fallen angels, those beings who once resided in the highest places, were cast down into the darkest recesses of the heavens because of their pride and rebellion. Their story is a cautionary tale, one that reminds us of the danger of turning away from our Creator, of succumbing to the temptations of the flesh, of placing our own desires above the divine will. The Book of Enoch, though ancient, holds relevance today, serving as a mirror to our own times. In a world where greed, corruption, and moral decay often seem to reign, the lessons of Enoch are more vital than ever. It's a reminder that there is always a higher way, a path that leads to truth, redemption, and eternal glory, if only we have the courage to choose it. But the journey of Enoch also speaks to the possibility of hope, of redemption, and of divine grace. For after witnessing the punishment of the rebellious angels and the eternal suffering that awaits those who defy the Creator, Enoch was still shown mercy. He was allowed to stand before the Lord, to witness the unfathomable beauty of God's presence, and to receive a blessing that would transcend the earthly realm. This is where the story takes a turn for the better. In the face of judgment and suffering, there is always the possibility of salvation, of restoration, and of eternal peace. Enoch's story tells us that no matter how dark our world may seem, there is always the potential for light to break through, for grace to reach us, and for the divine to lead us home. And for those who choose the path of righteousness, there is the promise of eternal life in the presence of God Himself, a life where pain, suffering, and sin are no more, where only joy, peace, and divine love remain. The power of the Book of Enoch lies not only in its vivid descriptions of the celestial realms, but in the message it carries for us here and now. The 10 heavens are not distant, unreachable places. They represent the higher aspects of our own souls, the potential for greatness that lies dormant within us, waiting to be awakened. It's a call to rise above the ordinary, to live with purpose and intention, to seek the divine in all things, and to strive for the light even when the world around us seems to be drowning in darkness. Enoch's ascent through the heavens is a powerful reminder that we are all capable of transcending the earthly realm, of reaching for something greater than ourselves, and of discovering the divine within. So, as we close this chapter on the story of Enoch, let's not forget the lessons we've learned. Let us remember that the heavens are not a far-off dream, but a real possibility, not just after death, but right here, right now. Let us look within ourselves and ask, what are we doing to rise above the challenges of this world? What choices are we making each day to align ourselves with the divine? In the end, the story of Enoch isn't just about a man who saw the face of God. It's about each of us, on our own journey toward enlightenment, seeking to walk with angels and ultimately to stand before the Creator. The path is not always easy, but it is always there, waiting for us to take the first step. So let us step forward with courage, knowing that the heavens are within our reach, and that with faith we too can ascend to places of unimaginable beauty, peace, and grace. May the journey of Enoch inspire us all to seek the divine, to rise above the darkness, and to embrace the light that awaits us.